Okay, let's just make sure the recording is on. Yes, perfect. And let's go to the survey, right? The survey that we sent out for you guys really quickly. The overview for session day 1, the polling questions. Sorry, not the survey. Let's take a look at that, right? So you guys answer, we have 37 responses, which is really good. And we have 5 questions, right? So first one being, which of the below are considered materials in Umoja, okay? And we have equipment, fixed assets, expendables, and then all the above. So again, these questions, very easy for LPETs and experts, but for those that have just joined us and it's the first time dealing with these concepts, it's not that easy. So basically, all of the above would be the correct answer here, okay? And if we check the responses on that one, we have, and this is live, so this works really well if you guys want to use this in your own trainings, the way it's displayed. So the results for the first question, which of the below are considered materials? We have 37 answers that say all of the above out of 37 responses, so that's really good. Moving on to our next question here, we have which transactions are part of the warehouse structure element? Okay, so we're only looking at warehouse structure element and the transactions that occur within that warehouse structure. We have that in the presentation too. So remember, physical goods receipt, virtual goods receipt was more inventory management structure. Transfer orders for put away and picking. Okay, remember these concepts. Put away and picking will always be related to putting something away in warehouse in a bin or picking something from a bin from the warehouse. So this is the correct answer, the second one, because it's the one related to warehouse. Purchase orders have nothing to do with the inventory management or the warehouse management, and reservations are more linked to inventory. Okay, we create these reservations when something is coming out or going into our inventory, okay, depending on the transaction that we're using. And the responses there too, we have a bit here of a variation, but still the majority have answered the correct one, put away and picking, 33. Others have answered the other possible answers, but it's fine overall, I think. 33 out of 37 is not bad. We can go to our third question here. So which elements integrate inventory with warehouse, or which element in this case? Plant, no. Storage section, no. That's warehouse. Plant is inventory, but the integration element is the storage location. Okay, so the correct answer is the third one, storage location, and then we have the last one, which is storage bin. And again, if we look at the answers for question 3 here, we have again storage location 26, but we do have 8 for plant, so that's quite a lot, and then storage bin 3. So remember, the integration between inventory management and warehouse management is the storage location element. Okay, the next one here, we have question 4. All fixed assets are considered equipment, but not all equipment can be considered a fixed asset. True or false? Okay, so again, I consider it quite simple at this point after years of training, but I know that for newbies it's not that easy. So we have true would be the correct answer, because remember that the materials, right, have they're broken down into equipment, fixed assets, and expendables. But the fixed assets are also considered equipment, but not all equipment is considered a fixed asset. So for question 4, we have here true and only one false. Okay, so not bad for 37. And our last one here is, which of the below is correct? Storage locations can be linked to only one warehouse. Several storage locations can be linked to the same warehouse. One funds center can be linked to multiple storage locations, but no 2 fund centers can have the same storage location. So again, these are aspects that we were teaching you during the presentation before this morning. So again, they're all of the above. All of them are correct, right? Storage locations can be linked to only one warehouse, okay? Several storage locations can be linked to the same warehouse. And then the fund center can be linked to multiple storage locations, but not 2 fund centers to one. Okay, and for that last one here, we have, again, 29, which is very good, and just some others on other sections. So I understand it's the first time you see this presentation. I consider that for the first time, this is not bad for the 5 first questions. It's true that they're quite simple. Again, I wasn't going to be too complicated in the first overview session. But keep in mind the questions and the answers. I recommend reading the presentation. We'll have more of these polling questions throughout the week. and we'll go over them like we just did now. Okay, we'll look at the questions and then we'll look at the responses. And I highly recommend to use this application in Teams for any other trainings you may have yourself. Okay, so I'll go back to the Teams presentation here. And that's it from my part, unless I'm missing something else. Daniel, I don't know if you want to jump in already, or if I have to cover something before you do.
No, I think it's okay. Thank you, Brian. Maybe to remind the students that, of course, these polling questions are aimed to basically track down how we are doing in terms of the explanations and the basic theory elements that we want to really convey in each of the sessions. So these polling questions are not, I repeat, are not intended to assess you during these 2 weeks, but it's for us to get direct feedback from you. So we see which points might be a little bit more difficult to digest. So in the following sessions, we can just insist a little bit more, right? So that's basically the point I wanted to try on the polling.
Exactly, and thanks for that reminder. So yes, we're not evaluating you, we're just letting you test your knowledge gained, right? But we're not using this as an evaluation. Thanks, Daniel. So whenever you want, you can take over.
Okay, so thank you, Brian. So now that you were mentioning the polling questions, I'm going to start the session directly with polling questions because I'm calling this polling test ex ante. So the idea is to throw out those 5 polling questions. It's completely normal that you may have no clue how to answer. Try to do to the best of your knowledge, okay? And then we will jump into the presentation. It's only 29 slides. And then we'll do again the same polling questions and see whether we can see the delta in terms of the knowledge that you have gained through the 45 minutes presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to post in the chat the ex ante polling questions. So you can see a link over there. If you can kindly test if it works. So you can start and I will give you 5 minutes. Can you please, Brian, confirm?
Yes, I can see it in the chat. I
Okay.
see the link, and if I can't click on it directly, and this is something that could happen to you guys, if you can't click on this link directly in the chat, you can just copy and paste it into any URL. Okay, you can, for example, if I want to do so in Firefox, you just paste it in the URL box and it'll open the survey. But you should be able to access it directly from the chat.
Exactly. So I'm giving you 5 minutes. So you access the polling questions. It's related to the roles, a little bit of where you can find the reports, and then we will go through those questions during the delivery, and then after the delivery and before the demo, we'll do again the polling questions, and we'll see the results as we did with Brian for the first session. So I'm sharing this robot race, so just 4 minutes to go, and then we will start with the presentation. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So I hope it was okay. It's I did send. We will collect your answers right after the session, and we will compare with the answers that you may have in the second round. But I will start sharing the presentation right now. I hope that it was okay. Okay, so you can post any comment, any question in the chat that Brian will be monitoring. So I just want to double check that you see the presentation right now. Is it okay?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So this session it's intended for to, let's say, be kind of like a running parallel. BI reporting is going to run in parallel with all the transactions and all the explanations for all the business processes related to property management in general. Remember that we're going to start from the goods received up until we write off a piece of equipment or a fixed asset. So throughout the life cycle of this piece of equipment, we do have several BI reports that will allow us to understand a little bit what's going on with that equipment or with a large amount of equipments or fixed assets. And we will be able to analyze and understand a little bit more what's going on in the mission from that point of view. So we thought that it was a good idea to include a session of introduction of BI because we double-checked with Joe. Maybe most of you do not have the access to the relevant BA role, but eventually you will get it. And let me tell you that it will be of utmost importance for you to have that role once you are deployed, because the first thing I will do if I would be to be deployed, right, is to understand what's going on in the mission the very first day, right? So if you're going to be analyzing a little bit what's going on in the warehouse for accounting and controlling, and you have to check the warehouse and you have to talk with several counterparts in the mission, it will be important to launch 2 or 3 reports from BI so you see what's going on in terms of warehousing in the mission. So as you do and perform several transactions into the system, you see how those transactions, those liquidation transactions are being reflected in those BI reports. And eventually, when you are going out of the mission after you finish your tasks, it will be a good idea to launch again the BI reports and see whether the transactions have been and the posting transaction have been properly done. And from the equipment point of view, from the inventory point of view, from the documents point of view, in terms of mission liquidation, everything it's in the right place. So that's why we think it's important for you to understand how it works. But at the same time, we see that most of you may not be acquainted with BI. So the idea is to start with answering 5 questions on who, when, why, where, and what related to these specific BI reports. So we shall start with the where. Where can I access Umoja BI in general? Where can I see the reports? Where can I access the supporting documentation related to BI? So we'll try to answer those 3 questions in terms of where and BI. First thing, where I can find BI in general is through the Umoja BI portal over here, right? This is the portal only devoted to BI reporting, right? The other two Umoja components, which is ECC and the Umoja portal, which consists of SRM and employee self-service. These 2, let's say, components of the ERP are more devoted to the transactional reporting. So we launch a T-code in order to see all the pending transfer requirements in our warehouse. And then we put a T-code in ECC. We see all the data and records that fill our needs. Then on the contrary, we can launch a report in the portal in order to see, for example, all the POs related to a particular, the goods receipt or the virtual goods receipt that we shall receive in a particular time. So the thing is, in terms of transactional reporting, we have components, ECC and the portal, but for BI, we have to log into a different, let's say, component that it's intended only to launch reports. So the good thing about the Umoja BI in general and all the reporting, I'd say, tools in the market is that you can basically cannot break anything. You're basically launching reports, analyzing data, but you are not performing any transaction whatsoever. So that's important because in the reporting academies that we deliver in Valencia and elsewhere, sometimes people are a little bit hesitant to use this BI tool because they think that they may break something, that they may modify a pending transaction in the system. That's not the case. Umoja BI, it's only for BI reporting, and you cannot break, you cannot modify any transaction whatsoever. Okay, in terms of just zooming in a little bit on the property management folder, and we will do a demo and logging into the system. Sorry. Once you log in into BI, you'll see that there is plenty of folders that you may see depending on your access, right? This is a screenshot of my access or Brian access or Elena's access, where we have plenty of access to these BI reports because we do deliver training on BI reporting. So we have to see and have access to plenty of these folders. But if you only have access to property management, which may be the case, for example, you will see only one folder, okay, which is called property management. And there, only there, you'll see the list of the reports that you will have access. Okay, so this is the property management folder, the one that it's that contains all these 45 different reports that we will go through during these 2 weeks. So in terms of where can I find support in documentation, okay, this is the first link that we're going to share with you. It's a link that gets you to YouTube, to a basic tutorial that Brian created a while ago on the BI basics. I think that in the initial invitation, you might receive this link, which we called Learn the Basics. And it's a tutorial intended to give you high-level picture of how Umoja BI works, the roles, a little bit of the reports on how you can access. It's quite interesting in case that you haven't gone through. It's only 21 minutes, but it's more enough in order to start going with the system. On top of that, in the presentation, you'll see a link on our YouTube playlist. This is our 5 sessions that we delivered a while ago, Brian and myself, on the GDP BI reports. Remember that all these reports in property management were created, I think it was in April 2019, I think. So they've been going on for quite a while, and we did deliver these sessions over 1 year ago to the LPs, to the local process experts on GDP, on Galileo decommissioning project. So in case that you want to know a little bit more on how all the reports work, and even an introduction on Umoja BI, please take a look at this playlist. We're talking about more than 10 hours of content, but I think it's quite an interesting link in order to dig a little bit on how these reports work, which are the basic consumers of the information of each of these reports, and which are the KPIs, the key performance indicators from the property management point of view that the business, Kirill's shop in New York, has set, not only for the former DFS missions, for peacekeeping and special political missions, but these KPIs and these reports apply to all UN entities. So the way that the property management, let's say, unit in New York launched all this, it's in a Big Bang approach, let's say. So all these UN entities, regardless whether we're talking about OCHA, UN Habitat, ECLAC, Vienna, Paris, so any of the UN entities will have to be compliant with some KPIs in property management, okay? And I will continue, Brian, if you don't stop me, or if anyone wants to intervene, speak up, but I think that the chat may be active right now, so anything you need or you think it's important to mention, Brian, please let me know, okay?
All right, thanks, Daniel.
Okay, so and the third link in terms of where I can find more supporting information related to BI and more specifically to property management performance BI reports It's the job aids that our colleagues in Valencia, the BI developing team, created. And trust me, these are great job aids. It starts from the very beginning of how to log in and explains to you how you can extract a report, how you can save a report, how all the different acronyms and the different data and master data elements that you may find in the report are thoroughly explained throughout the job aid. And the good thing is that each of the reports has a number and a description of it. And even whether we're talking a web intelligence report or, on the contrary, an analysis workspace, you can even see here in the link over here. So, for example, report number 8 on duration of the write-off process, it's an analysis workspace. But this report number 8 has another job aid related to another report as a formatted report. We'll see the difference between the two reports, but the good thing is just basically all the KPIs are duplicated into a web intelligence report, a formatted report, and an analysis workspace. So in terms of who, basically here we're going to talk about roles, right? Who can access this report, who can launch these reports, who can modify these reports. Very important, the role here, the key role here for you to have is the BI55. This is the technical name, BI55 CS SD analytic user, is the analytical user for property management. This role, BI55, is the one that will give you access to all the reports, and not only analysis workspaces, not only formatted reports, but all the reports stored in the folder property management in BI. And we want you to have this one because this is the one that will give you the, let's say, holistic perspective of the property management situation once you are deployed in the mission. And not only that, it's sometimes when you're deployed, and I'm talking from experience, you probably, if you have been deployed before, you have a series of terms of reference and tasks to be done during a couple of months. But at the end of the day, you do that and some other things that were not in the plate initially. And reporting is one of those. Sometimes you have to go and deliver several trainings, but at the same time as you do have this access, for example, you can help colleagues in the mission in order to understand and retrieve, pull out data from the system. So that's why we want you guys to be powerful, have a powerful access with a BI55 role. In case that you need further information on the different BI roles, on how the user access provisioning role works in Umoja, there's another link over here that if you click there, you'll see and you have more information on that, okay? So remember, BI55, it's the role that you may need in order to access BI property management. Then how many roles do we have in BI in general? Well, each role will be defined by the type of user, as you can see over here, and the type of report to be accessed. So first, the type of user. We have three main type of users in Umoja BI. First, the power user. Second, the analytical user. And third, the basic user. We want you to be analytical user. So that's why in the previous slide, you see analytic user over here, okay? We don't want you to be basic user, because if you're a basic user, you have less scope in terms of view of the number of reports. So we want you to have a full access as an analytical user. But on the contrary, being power user, if you compare with analytical user, the only difference between the two, let's say in practical terms, is that the power user will be able to share reports with other power users in the shared analysis folder, okay? And that type of access, it's a bit more difficult to get. So we didn't want to ask for the whole world because power user, it's only, I think, 500 people across the organization. So being an analytical user is more than enough for you to perform your duties and work once you're deployed. So first, the type of user. And secondly, this type of user will determine whether you have access to the formatted reports or the analysis workspace. So first, what's a BI regular user? Okay, the basic user. A basic user will have a standard level of access to be web intelligence reports. I call them webby reports. And this is the reports you can see in the background, the typical reports to be consumed. Basically, you launch a set of data in the prompt, and then you get a list of records. Usually, those reports have the UN logo, so the information that is stored in that formatted report that you cannot change the format may be subject to be shared with another counterparts, even the auditors, because this is official information from the UN. Okay, but and it's good to have access to these type of reports because these reports can be scheduled, so you can set up a scheduling for these type of reports, and you can receive the reports in your inbox, in your Outlook, and with a frequency that you determine, that you designed in the system. So these are very, very interesting reports, but the limitation over here is just you cannot modify, you cannot change, and you can do a huge analysis of data, okay? On the contrary, as an analytical BI user, the one that we request for you for property management, BI 55, this person will be able to utilize the formatted data reports, so these ones, and on top of that, he or she will be able to access the analysis workspaces, okay? And these are the former BO, the business objects type of reports that I think that you guys know very well, because this BO, the business objects module, was I think was successfully used across BRIN-DC for along so many years, especially the Galileo users. So, and this is the type of report when you drag and drop several characteristics or measures into one unique data universe, and from there you'll see how the data change, and you guys will be able to understand the situation from the property management point of view. Because remember that this access as a BI 55 will give you access to the set of reports for property management, not for all the reports in finance, budget, procurement, or transportation management. No. This BI 55 will give you access to all the reports in property management, which is more than enough for you to do or perform your duties once you are deployed. So that's the analytical BI user. And before I move on, I will double check with Brian in case there is any question or something to further explain. Over to you, Brian.
No, Daniel, the chat is active, but it's mostly related to questions on serialization of materials. It's not BI related right now, but the comments are closed, and the answers we're receiving also from the LPETs. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Angelo. They're also very active in the chat. Thanks, Elena, as well, for jumping in. So no, nothing for BI. So you can continue with that presentation. Okay,
perfect. So in terms of when is the data ready in BI, or where or when we can use these reports? Well, the data, it's ready when because there is an extraction, transformation, or loading process of data in BI that is executed with the following schedule. There is a 6-hour time range every morning from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. BRIN-DC and Valencia time every single day. And that data dump, that 6 hours, it takes to all the data from ECC and SRM to be dumped into Umoja BI. So the situation at the end of the day is just basically the information that we're going to see in the reports. For example, whether a piece of equipment has changed its status from being in stock to being installed in a particular storage location. Okay, that information will be in BI 24-hour with a 24-hour delay, which means the following day. So this data dump that occurs every single day, it's of all the data from the previous day, right? So anything that we see during the following day will refer to the previous day. So once a document is created and posted in ECC on SRM, it will be available in Umoja reporting with a certain delay as a result of the scheduling that we see here, right? So here's an example. If, for example, we create a document today, right? There is a goods receipt, a virtual goods receipt created into the system right now, for example, for tomorrow's session or the day after. And we see, we double check in ECC that it's there, the document number, but we may not see it in BI that same day because that information will come the day after, okay? And it's okay, we can live without having the latest information in BI, because remember that in BI, we're going to analyze trends, we're going to analyze data, big data and a large amount of documents and processes. So we can live without having the latest information, because if we want to have the latest information, we're just going to click a T code in ECC, or we're going to launch a report in the portal, and there we'll have the latest information from the system, okay? So in terms of when the data available in BI, it's the day after, okay? So there is a 24-hour delay. Another question related to the when, and this is really important, it's what we call the life cycle map, okay? So as I said before, all these 45 type of reports in property management are tackling different business processes throughout the life cycle of a piece of equipment, okay? So from the receiving goods part, where you have report number 10, and then to the inventory management process, once we receive the goods, then we will be able to see whether there is a depreciation involved in report number 19 if we are talking about fixed assets, or we can identify all the asset records and the IPSAS financial reports in report number 19, or we can see the reconciliation discrepancies once we have performed a physical verification process in the mission, and that will be report number 9. Or we can even analyze the total inventory value with report number 20, and only for fixed assets in report number 20 for fixed assets. And last but not least, a couple of good reports related to the utilization of the equipment, report 11, or the analysis workspaces for inventory and equipment. So you see, from the start of, let's say, the life cycle of a piece of equipment, when it's received into the mission with a receiving and inspection process, then automatically goes to inventory. And there we have a set of reports that will give you a good perspective of how that piece of equipment is treated, let's say, once it's in inventory. But on the contrary, once that piece of equipment it's issued to, let's say, a particular storage location or of business partner into the mission, we will be able to track down those records and see the depreciation of those records, where once they have gone out of the, let's say, warehouse, or even we will perform counting and controlling process into the warehouse. So we have several reports that will give us relevant information related to warehouse stock records, the operational stock, the LSD stock ratio. So there's plenty of information. And probably here, what we're going to show to you, it's more than you may need in order to perform your tasks. But as we have gone through trainings like this for the past year, and as we have accumulated and gathered quite a large number of presentations and knowledge, I think, we think that it's important to share with you at least all the presentations and all the job aids related to these reports. And then once you start working with the reports in BI, you will have reference material to go back and see in case that you need further information, right? And last but not least, really, once that piece of equipment suffers an accident, there is a particular BI report that we will gather information related to the incidents and accidents that are occurring in the mission, right? This report number 28 for incident accident is not intended to give you a KPI, but just kind of like information of all the different accidents occurring in the mission. But very important, the last box here, the write-off and disposal reports, report number 6, 8, 22, 23, 18, 27, 25, and the customized AWS, the analysis workspace for write-off and disposal, will give us a very good perspective of all the pieces of equipment or fixed assets undergoing through a write-off process or disposal process. What's the time that it takes for this piece of equipment to be written off? because there is a KPI involved. I think it's 180 days, if I'm not mistaken, or even 90 days. So whether you are compliant or not to the write-off policies and disposal policies, these reports will tell you. But for admission liquidation purposes, maybe you are not going to look up for a specific KPI, but you just want to know the list of records, the list of pieces of equipment undergoing write-off and disposal. There you can find those, and there you can identify and pinpoint all the different equipments that needs to be, speed up in order to write them off. So first thing, maybe if you go to the missions and you're going to go through the write-off process, is to launch a couple of reports over here and see what's in the process of being written off, on how long these pieces of equipment have been, let's say, stopped there without being taken in action whatsoever. So there you have the time, who took action, on how long it's taking for someone to take action on that piece of equipment. So you can start cleaning up a little bit the write-off process and the write-off and disposal process in the mission. So as you can see, this one question is quite important in a way that we're going to show you. This is the first slide. We are showing to you the number of reports involved and the number of business processes involved in the BI folder in the system. So we hope it's clear, and don't be overwhelmed really, because we will go through different reports as we go along these 2 weeks. In terms of what reports are available for property management, or which business processes are under the scope of BI property management, well, these are all the reports this is a screenshot of all the reports that you can find in BI. And in terms of main analysis areas, and I want to drag your attention to this because the analysis workspaces, you see that you don't see in the report any number here. In the fifth row, you see report number 1, and it goes in sequence as until report number 28. But the first, I think 4 or 5 records over here, the first 4 or 5 reports are analysis workspaces, and these are the ones, for my opinion, that are the most important for you to understand what's the situation in the mission from the equipment master record perspective, from the inventory perspective, or from the write-off and disposal perspective. Okay, and the other reports are very important as well, but are intended to give you the situation, a picture of the situation of a particular business process, which in this case is the physical accountability, right? From report number 1 to number 5, you'll have KPIs related to physical accountability of reports. Report number 9 and 10 to the goods received, to the virtual goods received, and probably we'll see these reports in a couple of days. In terms of inventory management and KPIs related to inventory, these ones, 13, 14, 16 reports, aging of stock, report number 15. Only for stock, in terms of utilization of the materials and equipment, will be report number 11 and 21. And then for fixed assets, only for fixed assets. Remember what we said before in the morning session on the type of materials. Fixed assets are treated differently because from the IPSAS perspective, they are treated differently. That's why we have a set of reports only devoted to see fixed assets, equipment, asset master records in terms of the depreciation, the cumulative depreciation of these fixed assets. There's a couple of reports very important to understand why we have a fixed asset in the warehouse not being issued out and not being used, but still the fixed asset is being depreciated. So, you can imagine a large, for example, piece of the generator in the warehouse, which is brand new and it's been there for, let's say, 2 years. That piece of generator is going to be depreciated and maybe 40%. So the value market of that piece of equipment without being used has been decreased by 60%. So those things will be identified in these reports. And then for write-off and disposal, there are another set of KPIs for you to understand and to go through. So as you can see, there are plenty of information for us to go through during these 2 weeks. But this session, today's session, it's more intended to give you a to be like an appetizer, right? Like to open the appetite for you to start understanding how important these reports are and how you can complement the knowledge that you get in the morning and with the transactions that are very important as well, but how you can complement those that knowledge with this BI reporting once you are deployed in the mission. And yes, the last one is the report number 28 in the incident accident process. So as you can see in the property management folder in BI, you see all these reports. We're talking about 46 reports. You see 46 items over there. 21 are web intelligence reports. So these reports are the formatted reports that we discussed before. And the other 25 are analysis workspaces. So basically, it's not 100%, but basically, you have the same amount for each of the KPIs. You have one web intelligence report and the corresponding analysis workspace. So you can, let's see the reality from two types of reports at the same time. And this is how it looks. For example, report number 1 on the effectiveness of physical accountability for fixed assets, P&E for fixed assets. And this is the type of report, as I said before, the webby report, the formatted report, it's already created for you. You only have to populate the initial prompt, and then there the report will be launched there, and it's for you to be consumed in a way, right? To understand which these numbers mean and to give, let's say, some sort of rationale behind all those numbers and percentages, right? But from there, you can launch an analysis workspace and then understand and dig in, drill down a little bit more on the information coming from the web intelligence report. So as I said, if you're not familiarized with the system and BI, don't worry, this is the time to start. And with the role that shall be granted to you, you have more than enough tools in your hand in order to play around with the data and help your colleagues in the missions once you are deployed. So I hope it was not so fast, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with with a long presentation. So I will check on Brian in case that there is any question or comment.
No, Daniel, just besides maybe the fact of some people struggling with the chat, meaning like seeing somebody else's answers and so on, something we can deal with after the meeting. But no, besides that, questions and comments have stopped.
Okay, so what I will do, thank you, Brian. Well, I will relaunch again the same, let's say, polling question, but the one I'm calling exposed. So it's going to be the same 5 questions that you did, let's say, 35 minutes before, and we're going to double check whether after this presentation you have a little bit more perspective on the messages that we're trying to convey during this session. Okay, so let me share this URL in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy it should be there, it's in the chat. So it will be the same 5 set of questions, but probably you'll have a little bit more perspective to go through those. So I will give you another 5 minutes, and after those 5 minutes, what I will do, we will do a 5 minutes break, and then we will resume the session with a little bit more specifics on how these reports work, where basically in a demo where you can find it, and then we'll go all together through 1 or 2 prompts so we start to feel how the reports look like. So if okay, you can do again the second set of 5 questions, and then in 5 minutes we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. I confirm we can see the link in the chat. So again, if you can click on it and the page loads, fine. If not, just copy and paste it into the URL field and it'll load like that.
Okay, so thumbs up. Thank you for going through again the polling questions. I took note of the results of the initial polling questions and see whether we are going to improve. Hopefully, we'll see better results. Although, let me honestly, in general terms, the first polling questions was not bad at all. So already there is some background information knowledge. So we see that you guys know a little bit of what we're discussing right now. So let's go for a short break of 5 minutes. So we can. It's now from 2:58. So let's be. I will resume the session at 3:03. So that time we'll go through the polling questions, and then we will jump into the demo, and we'll discuss a couple of concepts related to the prompts. So once you are already familiar with the prompt and the reports, then we can start working with them from tomorrow onwards. So Brian, over to you in case that you want to mention something related in the chat, or otherwise we will see each other. We'll hear each other at 3:03. Over to you.
Yeah, nothing more from my side. I wrote in the chat as well that the reminder for people to take the polling questions and the 5-minute break starting now.
Okay.
Okay, so far we're okay.
Okay. Okay. So we will resume the session. Thank you for waiting. So I hope the short break was fruitful, at least to stretch your legs a little bit and having some sip of water. So I was double checking the answers from the initial polling questions and then for the second. And well, I share my screen on the forms. As you can see, these are the two polling questions. The ex ante had 18 responses and the ex post 29. So the numbers are not comparable in a way that the sample is not the same, right? But we will see that in terms of responses, we did in the initial set of 5 questions, we had a pretty good result. You'll see, and I have written down the percentages, but in general terms, we're talking about good results overall, right? But then it's more important to go through the second one, although it has more responses of people who didn't take, I guess, the initial polling set of questions. But we'll go through those and see which are the difference between the two polling questions. So first, the first question that was posed is, where can I access the Umoja BI property management folder? Remember that only through the Umoja BI portal will be a response, because ECC, it's a transactional system. It's only for transactions. You have list of records, but you don't have BI data. SRM, it's the portal where it's the same thing, that it's a transactional system, but you cannot find any of the BI reports. And here, the fourth question, it was a bit tricky. So that's why I see a lot of questions on red, 12. It's because it says using BI portal with the analytical user role. Okay, I was asking only BI property management folder. So for the BI property management folder, as long as only through the Umoja BI portal will be the answer. But now that I'm reading again, this question may be a little bit tricky. So both, I will say that both the second and the fourth option will be, let's say, understandable to be correct. So I can see that both of them are basically 97% of the results. So that's a good result. Okay. In terms of second question, so how can I access this only through the BI portal only? We are not using any other component whatsoever. In terms of who, in terms of the roles, who can access these BI property management reports, we were asking the BI 55 all, and we were asking about all the reports, not only the formatted reports, but the formatted and the analysis workspaces. And the person who has a full access to all reports is the BI 55 analytical user. Okay, and you see that 27% of the responses are pointing out at that answer. And well, we have several other, but in general terms, 3/4 parts of the whole pie, it's pointing out at the right answer. So remember, BI 55 analytical user is the answer that we were looking for. As per the third polling questions, Umoja BI data for property management is live. All transactional data is automatically transported to BI in real time. So that statement per se is false, because we saw that there is some sort of delay, 24 hours delay, between the data that is created in ECC and then the data that you will see eventually in BI. So, and the majority of the responses are focusing on that one. So it's 86%. So it's a good rate of response. In the initial, for this particular question, in the initial polling question, we had 70%. So in general terms, we have better response rate in the second test than in the first one, even though that the number of responses has even been doubled from 18 to 29. Okay. Then fourth, regarding the property management lifecycle, what type of reports can I find in the Umoja BI property management folder? Here we have a very good score, which is 100% of you understood that basically all the property management business processes are within the scope of the BI reports, from write-off and disposal to physical accountability, goods received, and inventory and equipment management. So all of them will be covering in the BI report. So that's a good response rate. Very good done. Very well done. And then the last one, it's a scenario where I was just playing around with the role in BI, saying that I'm about to be deployed for a mission liquidation project. One of my several tasks assigned will be analyzing specific BI data on inventory and equipment master data records. Okay, and that's something that may occur once you're deployed. My role in BI grants me access as a basic user for property management. Basic user. Question, will I be capable to do my work? The answer will be no, because you may need further access as an analytical user in order to perform or to have access to all the reports. So the good question, the good answer was the third one. And it was around 80, I think 80 something % of you were able to respond well. So I'm happy with the results, especially because we had more responses in the second polling questions. So as we said before, Brian, myself, these ones are for you to understand what's the situation after we have delivered presentation, and for us to understand where to focus our efforts in the following sessions, specifically in BI. Okay, you see that people are even responding because it's refreshed, so we had 30 responses over here. So that was about what I wanted to tell you in terms of the polling. So I will move on now to the presentation in case that, and I will check with Brian in case there is anything worth mentioning in the chat. Over to you, Brian.
No, Daniel, we can jump right into the reports.
Okay, thanks. So I want to go through 3-4 concepts that you'll see in the prompts. The prompt is the initial window that you have to populate in BI. And for this specific list of reports, we have, let's say, a special concept, which is the reporting entity that you'll see. We definitely don't want you to be confused about this concept. So that's why I wanted to have a couple of slides to clarify a little bit so you don't get, let's say, confused when you launch a report for property management, okay? So first of all, business area. Okay, business area along with reporting entity, those two concepts that you'll see in the prompts will be the main fields responsible for reporting on these KPIs in property management. Okay, the business area, and I will go first on the business area, will define the financial responsibility of any particular piece of equipment. It's a mandatory field in most of the prompts in BI, but the reporting entity, it's always an optional field. Okay, so the business area, we're all clear with that concept because we have been using as a master data element since the Umoja Foundation, right? And we know that if your mission, if you have a business area and you have several pieces of equipment under that business area, you are responsible for the write-off, you are responsible for the enrichment of that equipment master record, you're responsible for the disposal eventually of that piece of equipment, because there are some financial implications within the system. So the business area will define that responsibility. Okay, so that's clear in terms of business area. But reporting entity, it's a new concept that is not actually a master data element in Umoja, in SAP. It's an element that our colleagues in New York, in the unit of property management, they created. They wanted to be present in the prompt in order to gather all the equipment owned by a specific UN entity. Okay, so the reporting entity is to identify the ownership and responsibility of the different items from the property management point of view. So it's not the same, the property management point of view, that the financial responsibility of the equipment. So, so you don't get confused. Reporting entity will not be defined by the mission. It's something that, for example, if you want to launch a particular report on equipment, you just focus on your plant, if that is the case, or your business area, and as a reporting entity, you can just leave it blank, or you put the same mission that you are analyzing. That's it. So there is a one-to-one relationship between a business area and reporting entity, and that's the end of the story. Okay, but we want you to mention. We want in this session to mention this reporting entity business, because initially it was quite difficult to understand, not only for the students initially, but for us as well. But you cannot find this concept in any of the T codes in SAP. You will never see in any of the T codes in inventory management, in warehouse management, please fill in the reporting entity, because simply it doesn't exist. So it's something that was made up by the business itself, who is going to oversee and govern, all the governance of the property management across all UN missions and across all UN entities across the board. So Kirill's shop in New York wanted to have that for their own interest. Okay, so at the end of the day, in the prompt, you just fill your business area and you put the same business area as reporting entity, and you are good to go. Okay, then in terms of plant, because you'll see the concept of plant that Brian explained this morning, is the location where all the materials are produced, purchased, stored, inventoried, shipped, received, and valuated, or from which service are provided. So basically a plant, it's, let's say, the pivot concept where the inventory, the whole inventory process pivots from, right? So a plant may be defined by the mission that you are analyzing. Okay, so these three aspects are important for you to understand once you start launching the reports in BI. Okay, then if we just want to visualize all this explanation, first I'm saying here, do not worry about the reporting entity. Use in every prompt in BI a one-to-one relationship between the reporting entity and business area or the plant. So for example, you want to see all the pieces of equipment in UNAMIT. Okay, that's you just want to know how many pieces of equipment do you have in UNAMIT and the value of those pieces of equipment. So you will put as reporting entity UNAMIT, as a business area UNAMIT as well, and you'll see your report on all the equipment, user status, value, date, system status, capital value for the equipment in UNAMIT. So as you can see, it's a one-to-one relationship between reporting entity and business area. So that's good to go. In some other prompts, in some other reports, only for inventory purposes, you may have the plant, right? Instead of the business area, you may want to put the plant. So the same thing, you will put reporting entity UNAMIT plus the plant UNAMIT, and that will give you the information in terms of inventory for UNAMIT. Okay, so that's about what I wanted the message that I wanted to transfer for the reporting entity. So it's not a concept that we are going to play around, especially for the mission liquidation, I think, process. But you'll see in the reporting entity, in the prompts, this element, and I wanted to make sure that we all understand what it means. Okay.
Yes, Daniel, thank you. Just to give you a little break there. So again, I know you've said it, but just a reminder for everyone else, right? So I'm in the mission now. I'm doing my job for liquidation. It's my first day, and I want to know the status of the mission that I'm in. Let's say it's UNAMID. According to what you're saying, right, I shouldn't worry that much about reporting entity, even though it's very worth for you explaining this concept for them, because you're going to see it in the BI reports. But I should focus mainly on business area, right? Because that's the one that the mission is financially responsible for. That's the one I have to ensure that it's, the processes have been done correctly and that there's nothing pending. The statuses of the equipment is correct. So I'm mainly worried about populating the field of business area, which most of the time, if not every time, it's required, right?
Exactly. And what I wanted to do is now to go to a demo, so we show the students how it works. on how you cannot worry about this reporting entity thing. Okay, so thank you, Brian, for that. So I think that, and this is a screenshot of the particular prompt. Okay, so this is an example of prompt for Unamit, and I think this is the prompt for the analysis workspace for equipment. So here I'm identifying the business area for Unamit, P015. The reporting entity, as Brian was correctly saying, is the same, Unamit. And even the plant is the same, Unamit. So I'm focusing all my attention into Unamit from the inventory point of view in the plant, and from the finance point of view in the business area. Then reporting entity, it's not a mandatory field, but you just put the same mission just in case that so you make sure that there is no pieces of equipment or records outside of Unamit. That's the only thing, okay? So we can do a quick demo right now. So we see first we log into the system, we see how it looks, and then we can even go through one or two prompts so you see how it's populated, okay? So I'm going to log into production. Remember that Umoja BI does not have a training environment per se. So all the exercises and all the demos and all the different activities that we will perform in BI will be in production. So will be real data, okay? So I will launch the BI portal. Okay, and remember that you may need your BI role granted in order to see all these reports. So it's important that you follow up on those requests. Okay, so I'm logging in with my credentials. All right, so this is the first, let's say, the landing page. And as you could see in the screenshot in my presentation, initially you have a left panel with all the drop down of all the folders I have access. And each of these folders will contain a list of reports to different business processes, right? But from our case, we're only going to focus on the property management folder over here, property management. Once I click on that folder, you see the list of 46 items that are included within this folder on property management. Okay, and from there, I can see even the type of report, whether it's an analysis workspace or we are talking about a web intelligence report. You'll see that all those reports are certified, meaning that the business itself, the property management unit in New York, all the, let's say, chiefs in terms of property management, they have certified that this report is the one that contains official information from the UN, and you even have the time, the date when this report was created and put in place into production. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to launch 2 or 3 prompts, so you'll see how the prompt works. First of all, I'm going to launch the report number 10 on virtual goods receipt timeline, and this probably will launch it tomorrow, the day after, with Brian. So I'm going to double click. It's just you select and you double click. That's the only thing. The system takes some time to launch the prompt, and do not be limited to, because sometimes it takes a bit of time for these reports to be launched, but it's because of these performance issues that we have with HANA and some other technicalities that we are not going to go through now. But please bear in mind, especially once you are deployed, and because we know how life is in the mission, the real life, the bandwidth is not the best. You have connection through a satellite, and the data may take a bit of time to be received. So do not just be patient, because even in Valencia or Brindisi it takes time. Okay, so this is the first prompt that I'm launching. But let me go back to documents where I have the list of reports, and I'm going to launch another one, report number 12, for example, on stock ratio. Here, I double click. So every time I'm opening a report, you see there is another tab on the top, okay? And automatically the prompt pops up, Okay, and I'm going to launch a third one, which may be the one for 18 for disposal, for example. Analysis workspace, double click. So basically, I'll see here 3 reports, 3 tabs: report number 10, report number 12, and report number 18. And then I'm going to play around with the prompt so you see how it looks like and how this reporting entity, business area, plant business works. Okay, so the first one, certified report number 10 of virtual. So this is the prompt that I will have to fill in order to see data. First of all, I want to draw your attention that there are 3 red arrows over here, which means that we have to, it's mandatory to fill in information of those fields in order to have the OK button here activated. All right, so for virtual goods received, I have to put a start date. And I can even put a large amount of, or a large rate, starting my analysis from January 2019 up until, for example, now, today. So you see, it's already checked in green because this data, it's compliant with the format. Okay, I want to draw attention to the format of the dates as well. Okay, it's not always the same in all the prompts. Receiving plant, mandatory as well. Let's use the example of Unamit. Okay, and here you see these goggles. If you want to go for a particular or look up for a particular element, you always have to fill in this field and then click on the goggles. Okay, so let me put there Unamit and click on the goggles. So you see the system finds the value in, let's say, alphanumeric code, which is SD10. But if we scroll to our right, the description is Unamit. Okay, so we have the description Unamit and then the corresponding code in Umoja SD10. So let me put in my analysis SD10. So you have receiving plants for all the goods received Unamit, a range of time, and then reporting entity. You see that it doesn't have this red arrow, so it's not a mandatory element. But in order to be in the safe side, I'm going as well to put Unamit, find it, and I'm making sure that the plant and reported entity is the same. And then what I do is I launch the report. It's going to take some time, so let me go to the second tab, to the report number 12, and do the same thing. In this case, for the stock ratio here, what I have here, it's a business area, right? Because I have information here on the different pieces of equipment in our stock, and whether these pieces of equipment are declared surplus or not. Okay, so I have here a business area concept, and it's mandatory to have it there. Okay, the report automatically is as of today. It prompts automatically as today, but you can change that. Okay, we're not going to do that, but we're going to fill in again. Unamit is in business area. So again, Unamit. I click on the goggles. I'll see that as a business area is P15, P015. The description is Unamit, so I select and I move to the right panel. So the prompt is populated. The same with the reporting entity. It's not mandatory, but still it's recommended to put the same business area. Remember, one-to-one relationship between these two concepts, right? Remember what we said, one-to-one relationship, reporting entity Unamit, business area Unamit. Reporting entity Unamit, plant Unamit. What you have is a report on Unamit. So let me just find reporting entity Unamit. Here we go. And then there you can change equipment. You can put equipment category or whether you want an acquisition value. It's not important for me. At least I filled in the two main prompts, which is business area, the date, and then the reporting entity Unamit. Clicking OK. And then the third, this is a report on the disposal backlog. You'll see that automatically it's the system prompts you the required fields, which are 3, the date, 2, business area, and equipment type. But if you want to see all of them, the required plus the optionals, you click on all. And these are all the different equipment types. So it's only 4 fields. So day 2, let's put today, 20th of April, business area. Here you see, because this is an analysis workspace, the prompt or the selection of the different elements in the prompt may be a little bit different, right? So I click here in the match code, and from there, I select UNAMID. And just, I want to drag your attention here to these goggles. If you see here black arrow here, you just click and see whether you want to find this concept as a key or as a text. If you're putting here a text, which is UNAMID, make sure you click on text, because the key will be this P015 alphanumeric code that SAP works with. But in this case, I just want to work with the text, so I'm looking for UNAMID. So the system understands UNAMID here and actually retrieves this P015 code from SAP. I click in OK. It's over there. And reporting entity, the same thing. Here I click on the match code, and I'm going to put again UNAMID. What I can do here, I can put P015 because I know by heart that this is the code for UNAMID, but here in the goggles, instead of the text, I'm going to look for the key. So I leave it there, and I click on the goggles. Okay, should be there. So let me go. Ah, no, because it's reporting entity. Reporting entity doesn't have a code. Okay, that's it. my bad here. So UNAMID reporting entity, UNAMID business area, day 2. Equipment type is mandatory as well. I want to see assets or others, which will be equipments. Remember that in terms of equipment, you can have an equipment that can be a fixed asset or not, but all the fixed assets are pieces of equipment. So you can do your analysis by both assets and equipments. Okay. And there we launch our prompt. So remember, we're coming from here, we launched 3 reports and we populated 3 different prompts. So you see the first, for the goods received, for the virtual goods received timeline, we get some data in terms of assets and the current value of those assets, right? All of them received, okay, and all of them from UNAMID. You see here that this is the information coming from the prompt here, the date, from to the receiving plant, and then reporting entity, we put UNAMID. So this is the information. For the second report, we have the stock ratio for all the equipment eligible for surplus in UNAMID. Over here, I have information, okay? And have all the information from UNAMID because I put my business area UNAMID and my reporting entity UNAMID. That's it. And third, this is the analysis workspace related to the disposal backlog, only for UNAMID. Business area UNAMID, the description of that business area, which is UNAMID, and the reporting entity UNAMID. Okay, this demo was not intended for us to work with the reports, but just to make sure that you understand how the prompt is populated and that reporting entity business, it's only an optional field that you have to align with the business area and with the plant, if that is the case. So Brian, over to you in case that we have any questions or anything else worth mentioning. Over to
you. Hi, Daniel. No, nothing in the chat at this point. No one has asked any questions on the reports. I know we've all been following you. It's very interesting. I know it's only the beginning, no, and you're only showing the prompts and what the reports look like. We'll be jumping into these tomorrow in the following sessions until next, the last Friday, 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. Okay, some people, like, for example, Joseph Kenny right now has just added in the chat, how about drill down? So I know there's definitely more interest for more, right? You're only really touching the surface of these reports. Maybe we can show a little more, but I think, Joseph, are you referring to the web intelligence reports or the AWS? Because I see that Daniel right now is only showing these webbies, right? Daniel? You hear me?
Yes, yeah. No, yes.
Okay, sure. So well, you're only focusing on those for now, right?
Yeah, I basically, honestly, what I did is randomly I selected these 3 just for the sake of showing to you how the prompt works. Then I think we'll have plenty of time to go through the drill down business. But remember that, for example, in this report number 10, you basically are going to get information on the KPI. You see KPI, virtual goods received time, the time that takes to process the virtual goods received for UNAMIT, in this case, for the virtual ones. No more information on that regard, but then on the contrary, if for the stock ratio in UNAMIT, you have more tabs than one. Okay, the first one is the KPI stock percentage emissions, but then you have a second tab here, which gives you the information by material description over here, and the percentage of those units in stock, over stock, and the difference between the possible and declared surplus. So all this business we'll go through as we go these 2 weeks. But the Web Intelligence reports, it's not only just one tab. You may have more than one tab, as we can see here, 3. And even in those tabs, what you have, those extra tabs, what you have is the specifics of the equipment master records and the serial numbers coming from a general summary tab that is the one that is shown first. Okay, so just be attentive to the bottom part of the reports, because you'll see more than one tab, and in those tabs you may have drilled down specifics, let's say, of the information that you have in summary in the first tab. I don't know if that clarifies the question, but definitely the time to go through the reports will be as we go along the days. Over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Daniel. We have Angelo Claudio, who's also wants to jump in and say something, so you're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Just a quick chat on this reporting based on our experience. Any report can be drilled down. You can get any kind of information you wish. You can also basically create formulas as well. You can go and drill down up to the PID description. As you can see from this first report, mainly we managing our KPIs through percentages, quantities, and values. Okay, so when you drill down, if you can just keep on the second tab, material group. Now we got the material groups, and then we can drill down to the PID. But of course, more you drill down and more you try to be accurate in terms of product IDs, more discrepancy you can have, because of course there is a discrepancy between inventory and the item in use, and the same item can be described on a different way if it's in use or if it's in stock. So we must be very careful when we run this report and we drill down. In addition, we have also to validate the status of the equipment, because when you create a report, you need to understand which kind of filters you want to apply, which kind of data you want to analyze. Because then behind each report, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Brian and Daniel, behind each report there are a set of filters. For example, in this report there are analyzed material which is in use, which is in stock, in transit, etc., etc. So each report, before you finalize the report, you need to validate it and verify that the information that you want to have it are those that one in the report.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much for intervention. Exactly, that's what you said. Remember, when you go to the emissions, you'll see situations that you can find a lot of discrepancies, right? But these reports, as Claudia was saying, is only reflecting the reality. So if there is a piece of equipment which are wrong, let's say, user status, and which or it has not been enriched properly, that's not the job of BI to correct all those discrepancies, but those equipment master records, that those set of informations will have to be corrected in the transactional systems in ECC. And then once corrected and properly analyzed, then it will be, let's say, transported into BI. So basically the information that you'll see here is the reality that you see in the transactional systems. But in the transactional systems in ECC, you may encounter a lot of discrepancies and a lot of information that is wrong. And you'll see that especially in the part of the enrichment, in the equipment master record, in the asset master record. That's why it's very important to do a good housekeeping of those records, especially if we are talking about equipment and inventory, because at the end of the day, the KPIs and the information reflected in BI will be just the reality of the transactional systems that we are, let's say, maintaining in the mission.
Just another quick note, very quickly. Of course, we went through Pyro exercise, where we basically optimize inventories. So basically, whatever is in inventory supposed to be properly codified. But what we never done, except in Brindisi and Valencia, is what we have in use. So if you have an item which is in inventory has been properly codified, doesn't mean that the same item which is in use has been codified in the same with the same PID. So stock ratio will no longer valid in this case.
Exactly. So that's the important.
Can I jump in? Sorry, guys, because
Sure.
yeah, I hope we don't get confused here. And let me recap just for maybe clarity. I guess what we need to keep in mind is that these reports are they are showing us what the concept is behind these reports. Now, if we pull out dirty data, that's not BI report. It's something that you need to address on a day-to-day job. So again, not to get confused, I'm sure, Claudio, you retrieve some anomalies, but this doesn't mean that the reporting that they are explaining to us are not correct or are not in line with what we need to do. It's just to identify and address anomalies, but the concept that they are trying to explain, I think, is based on the the description and the explanation done before. I hope I interpret correctly.
The report itself is correct. Is the way that you basically release it, the way that you develop it, that could be lead you to a wrong result based on the filters that you entering. So when you creating this report, I mean, the report as it is a corporate report. You can see all the information. Then you can enrich it with additional information based on your requirements, on your working requirement, on your business requirements. You can add more fields, you can add more formulas, etc., etc. Based on the way that you run the report, you can get the right information or the wrong information. The report itself is correct. It's the way that you're working on the report that can lead you to a wrong results. Correct, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it's important, even though we're only tapping on the surface right now, it's very important to understand first what you want to look for in these reports, and then how to actually get that, right? Because you may be adding data that you think is correct and you're getting a report that's completely wrong. But focusing on these web intelligence reports that Daniel is covering, that these are already, let's say, pre-formatted and defaulted, and this is the data that you get. And I want to go back to something you said also, Angelo, the filters, right, that are in the background that we don't see. I highly recommend, and I'm sure we can see this maybe later or tomorrow, is going into the job aids first, right, and understanding the types of filters that are defaulted in some of these reports, because it's true, like you're mentioning, Angelo, we get some results, right? And there it is. There's where Daniel is showing us on the screen. We get some results, but these results have already filtered out some other data, right? Like maybe it says all equipment with user status write-off out of the report, and you wouldn't know that. So you're looking at a report with a certain amount of data, and there's already something filtered out there, correct? So that's something we also have to consider. So it's always interesting to look at the report first, understand what's being filtered out, what the report is supposed to give you, and even looking at these job aids, you can actually see what to add to the report to get exactly what you want. So you're both right in the sense, right? The human error of putting in the wrong data in the prompt will give you the wrong answer, but the reports are really giving you what it's telling you it's giving you, right? Like the stock ratio of a specific business area.
Yeah, and thank you, Brian, guys, for those interventions. And now that you're Brian and you're mentioning the, let's say the scope of data or the background filters that you may see or you may have in the reports, in each of the job aids for each of the reports that we will see in the table of contents, which is the first page, you'll see one of the last points in each of the job aids is the scope determination. That will give you, as Brian was mentioning now, the conditions applicable and the logic selected to pull out the data from the report. In this case, for example, report number 12, there are limitations because only included equipment stocks with serialized materials, only included equipment with material assigned in master data, for example. Okay, so always it's good to first, once you go through the job aid and the reports, take a look at the scope determination to really understand which is the category of data that you are going to analyze. Okay, but I think once we go through the reports, I think we can explain all these things. Over to you, Brian.
All right, yeah, thanks, Daniel. Hopefully this also clarified some of the comments that we were making. And by the way, Angelo, Gianluca, anyone, if you want to intervene at any time, okay, you let us know, you write it in the chat, speak up. All this information from real life insight is better than any training anyone can get. So anytime you guys want to add something, you're more than welcome. In terms of reports, I don't know, Daniel, anything else to add right now? I don't know if you have something prepared, something else?
No, but I just wanted to, because it's a really long day, I think, for the students, first of all, because it was a very condensed 2 sessions, and we have plenty of time to go through the different concepts. But as I said in the morning, at the end of the day, you have to, let's say, try to grasp 2-3 main concepts, and in the sessions, I will, at least in my sessions, I will try to at least underline which are those concepts that the minimum, let's say, content or understanding that you may want to take away from each of the sessions. In this case, for this today's session, it's as long as you know how to log in BI, know where those the reports on property management are stored, which is the role that you may need to request in order to access these reports. That there are 2 types of reports included in the property management folder, which are the web intelligence reports, as Angelo was mentioning before, with the UN logo, or the analysis workspaces here, which are more, let's say, linked to the business objects, business that we may be acquainted with, and that the data that you'll see depends on the 24-hour delay and the scope determination of created behind the scenes of each of the report. With that, those 5-6 items is more than enough for me to, if you already grasped all those concepts, I think it's more than enough for today for the BI session. And I'm already content with the results and the feedback that we got from the polling question. So I think that at least those messages were conveyed and you guys understood pretty well the minimum standards. And then in terms of BI, as we are going to go along these sessions, we will pull in reports and you'll see the utility of those reports in once you are deployed, right? Obviously, with 45 different items and with all these elements that we want to go through these 2 weeks, it's impossible to do a one BI single session that will cover everything, right, in only 2 hours. So this is just in order to open your appetite, and from there we are just going to build on. Brian, and yes. So enough. I mean, from the session today, it's over from my end.
Okay, so basically you'll just share the survey right now. Just a reminder for everyone. And I think Lara is also with us there as part of the attendees. I know they're joining us right in the afternoon from 4 to 4:30, correct? If that's still happening, just to make sure no one leaves the session. Okay, the session after 4 will continue for another half an hour.
Yes, Lara. Good afternoon to all. It should be starting from tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
HQ
Perfect.
PMU's support on this, yes. Thank you.
Just making sure. Thanks, Lara.
And so, sorry, Brian, to interrupt. That now that Lara is mentioning that probably Kirill, Ivo, and some of the super experts in property management in New York will join in the afternoon session. These are the guys who are, let's say, the big minds behind all these reports. So in case that we need to clarify or even to further and drill down concepts related to BI or these data in the reports, I think that it's a good entry point to expand the knowledge in terms of BI. So I'm glad that these guys will join the afternoon session. Over to you, Ryan.
Yes, definitely. It will be very, very valuable. So I know that we're going to have the 2 hours in the morning, the 2 in the afternoon. And when our head is ready to collapse, then we need to start, really paying attention to the experts in property management in New York. But that's what it is. So get your coffee ready after lunch, because it'll be some long days up until the end of the training. I hope you guys enjoyed the sessions. Please take some time to also answer the evaluation for the afternoon session. Anything that can help us will be highly grateful for that. We'll just remind you that we have a final evaluation of the actual training at the end of the training for the whole training, but we just want to have evaluations of the sessions in the morning and the afternoon, basically based on content, delivery, knowledge shared, all that. So just take some 5 minutes if you can. And besides that, if you guys have any question before we close, now is the time to ask it. I took note of these comments made by Joseph, Nico, and Angelo on these serialization, consumption, and so on, because I think it's very interesting for tomorrow's session to bring that back, okay, and maybe analyze a couple of situations together. Okay, so I took note of those just for tomorrow's session where we're talking about physical and virtual goods receipt. I think that's gonna be key when we start talking about what to do with the goods that we're receiving into our inventory, okay, no matter what it is that we're receiving. Nothing else from my end. Guys, now is the time. If we still have 10 minutes if you have any questions. If not, once you're done filling in the survey, we can call it a day.
Mm-hmm. And I will post the presentation right away in the chat, so you can retrieve it from there.
So I'll stop the recording, Daniel. Okay.
Okay.
Unless we have no more.
I'll leave it open 10 more minutes in case that anyone, because we will be actually putting the video there, some files there. So, I will be here around the MS Teams channel.
Okay.
So here we go. I just dropped in the chat the presentation that I delivered today.
All right, nice. Thank you. I can even check it right now. And yeah, there you go. I already have access to it. And yeah, as soon as we stop the recording in maybe 2-3 minutes, it's available right there. But it's gonna be available in the actual meeting, not in the channel. You won't see it in the channel. You're gonna have to go into the meeting and see it. That's why what I did before is copy the link that you share and put it in the chat of the channel. Okay, just to let you know, Daniel.
Okay, thanks.